Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the SuperNova Astrology Update for May 1st through 8th, 2023. Well, here we are in the very strange time in between eclipses. We're coming up on the Scorpio lunar eclipse that happens on May 5th, and kind of still in a strange reverberating energy of that Aries new moon, the second Aries new moon, which was our first eclipse. The first eclipse in the signs of Aries and Libra, which the nodes will be moving into in July. And now we're having the final eclipse of the nodes in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. Now, this is really huge because right at the time when the nodes switch signs from Taurus, Scorpio to Aries, Libra, they will be in square to Pluto, and Pluto will have retrograded back into Capricorn. Pluto right now still sitting at 0 degrees Aquarius. And that's everything we're feeling right now. We also have Mercury retrograde. So we've got eclipse season, the time in between eclipses. Eclipses are about things being hidden and revealed. Also, they're about timeline alignment because it's the nodes of the moon have to do with how are we going to get to where we're going and what's holding us back from the past. And the eclipses happen when the sun and the moon line up with the nodes of the moon. And so eclipses can be a time outside of time, or especially the time in between eclipses. Very strange, and especially with Mercury retrograde. In Taurus, a fixed earth sign. So it's like digging in. But you know what? It's kind of like digging in, put your seatbelt on for the ride. That's coming with this astrology, this coming over the next 5-6 months with Pluto coming into square with the nodes, because Pluto is the destroyer and it is the breaker down. It is the one that transforms and transmutes. So it's not about destruction for destruction. It's about destruction of what's no longer serving. And of course, this is exactly what's going on in our whole world. We're just seeing and observing in front of our eyes the dismantling of all major systems. And this is part of the energy coming through for SuperNova Souls, recognizing and realizing in the process that we're going through on a soul level, that we are being prepared to be the builders of the new systems. And we've actually been prepared. We've been prepared from the very beginning in this evolution because it's all we ever came here to do. And so we're moving into a period of time where the essential, quintessential requirement of these times is supernova souls unburdening themselves, taking off what they carry, which their burdens have to do, your burdens, our burdens have to do with the pressure, the heaviness of our gifts that we're not using and we can't access. And when we have tried to access them and share them through this evolution, we've been rejected, exiled, or perhaps killed. So there's a deep and profound internal process happening for supernova souls right now that has to do with all of this Taurus energy. So the sun is in Taurus and coming up to Mercury retrograde in Taurus. So they're like ships crossing in the night. This just is happening on the 2nd of May. And so we're feeling this. Now, this is an activation of maybe what we're talking about, because the sun in Taurus is around our identity and our self-worth. Now, with Uranus and Taurus, we're getting in higher frequency activation. And this is very important for supernova souls because it's an activation, a validation, an extracting of bringing forward what's inside of this precious gifts and skills of the supernova soul. Because Taurus rules our self-worth, and we're coming up against a powerful mountain, the fixed earth Taurus energy, where Uranus is trying to activate and open up, crack open the shell so that the higher vibrational frequencies can come into our life. We can embody them. We can incarnate our bigger, truer, higher self. we're working on this, and so everything that seems that the Taurus, Uranus and Taurus is really speaking to this embodiment of higher frequency vibrations, this incarnation of the bigger, more true spiritual self. But we're coming up against a problem because with the Taurus energy, it's showing us where we don't feel like we deserve these gifts. And yet I'm seeing again and again supernova souls just like, I have been carrying this burden, and the burden was so heavy that I didn't even know I was carrying it because I've gotten so used to it. And now recognizing that the burden, we have burdens, we have karma that we carry for other people, for the world, for collective consciousness. We have all this ways we've gotten entrapped into this reality. Burden for supernova souls really comes from the unused precious resources. Okay, so Taurus is about resources, and it's about our self-worth for our own resources. And this is so huge because the main problem in the world right now is that the agenda, long-term agenda, is pushing us into a disconnection and more with what really matters, where our resources come from, our core level values. And this disconnect from the appreciation and gratitude that's a natural experience of receiving from the earth and receiving what we need. This whole world is like, this is real, this is real, this is real. And it's like, no, that's not real. And that's who we are, supernova souls. We're here to represent reality. I know we've been called the crazy stargazers this whole time, right? But we are here to represent the true reality. And there's a greater purpose. With the shit hitting the fan the way it is right now, it's kind of like, what in the heck is going on here? And what's the point? And what am I doing? A deep unrest in the supernova soul of like, what in the world am I here for? And why is it so difficult to just be me in this place? And it's like, because this place is designed, it's in duality, it's in manifest form, and it's designed to bring us back to source. So we have to recognize that everything that's happening to us is about waking us up to our true spiritual nature. And supernova souls have gotten their ass kicked over these last years and lifetimes. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do you even survive through this? And maybe it's part of our process to really own our wealth, like really own it unabashedly, just fully uh, embracing. Now, you can't embrace what's yours without sharing it. Okay, this is the service. This is the true. This is the true spiritual evolution for humanity. And we've gotten ourselves in quite a pickle here because we feel increasingly humanity and, of course, supernova souls feeling disconnected from source, from what really matters, from spiritual life, from other spiritual people, and a materialism and Facebook and fake book and facades. And it's like, oh God, what am I doing here? Emptiness, the disconnection. Now this is part of this agenda. And yet what's happening, a very powerful energy is happening like a boomerang and a backfire. And that's something we really need to remember, because as the control forces exert their final strength in trying to hold down humanity, we have to understand that whatever they're doing, it might look scary in the moment of what's playing out in the world or in our life, but it's all backfiring. It's all boomerang, right? And what's happening is there's a small group of people, but very powerful souls who are coming into deeper connection, are using this opportunity to come back home and to be like, I want to be a living, breathing example of this. I want to walk out there in the world, in my ministry, which is about demonstrating that this world is fake. And the spiritual world is what's really real. And we better start living according to that, because this is going to crumble, And so supernova souls in this deep soul yearning for purpose, for meaning, for a life that matters. Because basically what seems to be going on with this Taurus energy is that it's showing us this disconnect, this, and now we know as supernova souls, we've experienced this love and care, and it doesn't always feel that way, but we've had glimpses. We can come into connection with our mother, this energy of source manifest in this form that takes care of us, that wants to take care of us. It's our, as a human born in this paradigm, human soul in a, a soul in a human body, we have a birthright to be cared for in this world. That's just when we're in connection, we're cared for. Now we're in disconnection and we're trying to get back to connection. But this disconnection is creating, so it's really interesting because we know that ultimately, when we really get down to it, in these existential crisis moments where we're like, what is the point? Can't spend one more minute doing something and moving in a direction that's not in alignment. How do I get there? What do I do? You know? And that's where we've kind of gotten lost because we have all these projects and ideas of what we thought the way we could manifest and do what we're here to do and bring what we want to bring. Except for that, we're finding that the end result of those ideas doesn't necessarily vibrationally match what we really wanted. And so we're having to create in a different way. And so it's like when we come down to it, what do we really want? Really matters. And for supernova souls, right now, it's your peace of mind. It's your greatest gift. It's your greatest commodity. And everything is trying to keep us from this. But think about it. When you feel at peace, you automatically feel gratitude. I don't think there's a difference between the two energies and vibrations. And yet, why won't supernova souls let themselves be at peace? Why won't humanity, if who has any consciousness, let themselves be at peace? Because we're disconnected. We don't feel that we deserve that peace. We don't feel that we deserve to be cared for and loved in this world. And we're walking around trying to bring the spiritual love while we ourselves are living in spiritual poverty. So the main message in this Mercury retrograde eclipse season redirection time of life for supernova souls is that you have got to claim for yourself situations, environment that can put you in a position to be able to offer what you have inside. Okay. Because when we're in poverty consciousness, when we're running, when we're in survival mode, we can't access our creative energy. We can't access these gifts. We can't access that peace. And so this is this radical self-care. And it's kind of like, all right, so we've all battled against these forces and we've gotten to, it's a lot about getting to a point where you recognize you have no power over me because I'm a sovereign soul. But then what do? Right? We've been on this precipice of claiming back our autonomy and sovereignty, and we haven't been able to fully make a leap. It's like trying to get out of a narcissist relationship, right? And oh, they suck you back in. And this is definitely energy that's been coming up for supernova souls, very challenged with being shown very clearly how we've been letting our energy leak out and be sucked up by people who don't want to produce anything and don't want to offer anything. A parasitic reality. It's like we have two kinds of souls right now on the planet. And we've got, of course, the self-serving or the selfless. But this is the deal. So supernovas are here in this. They want, service, spiritual service is the highest calling. And yet when we've offered our gifts in the past, our light, our healing, our love, our spiritual, the gifts that we have, we've developed over many lifetimes and evolutions, you know? And that's where it's like sometimes there's an energy around supernova souls. Well, it sounds like you're saying we're better than other people or something. It's like, yes, there's an advanced soul situation. Doesn't mean you're better or worse. It just means you've had thousands of more lifetimes, and that you can't really catch up very quickly. Maybe, but we have to give ourselves permission to be who we are, starting with creating an environment that supports us to begin to offer what we have, because what we have is eating away at us inside. this huge, huge burden, because uh, the energy of supernova souls bringing their gifts from the very beginning, it's all they wanted to do to Earth. And that was like, we've been rejected, we've been killed, we've been abused, we've been traumatized, again and again. And so we have not felt received, we felt rejected. And there's an absolute correlation between being able to receive what we need to survive and thrive. And we have to work this out, because you know what? This is what's plaguing humanity. A deep subconscious guilt, shame, and grief over receiving the blessings of this world and not giving anything back. And yet we're fed upon and we're stolen from and we're sucked dry by this world. So when you are at peace, which is we know for supernova souls, that's a huge commodity, yeah, huge wealth, because this feeling of spiritual peace, we know we've battled, and to be able to find this, to own this, to a lot of these relationships, what happens that those narcissistic control-based relationships, it's about keeping you from your peace and from your expansiveness, from your meditation, from your work, from your spiritual work, from your peace of mind, from your gratitude, from being able to offer what you have. And so now we're coming up against where we had leaked our energy out and given it all away because we didn't appreciate it. We didn't feel that we deserved it. This is really, really deep, and ugh. But it feels like this is what the Scorpio eclipse is about, this Taurus activation. We're coming to the last part of the south node in Scorpio. So we're looking at what's been hidden in the dark, that's been keeping us from this depth of experience, this true passionate experience, this living, this connection, the way life is supposed to be, so we're searching for this. But we're struggling. A lot of supernova souls are struggling, thought they totally dealt with the narcissist stuff and find themselves in another situation. They just didn't see the patterns. And it's like being sucked dry again. And so here we are with trying to claim back our energy and our power. But this is something we really need to look at. What if these situations where we've been overgiving and being treated like garbage, a lot of times our family members, unappreciated. Who are you? You're dirt. You're nothing, when we're actually everything. But have we allowed these situations, because the leaking out of this energy to the narcissist energies is somehow relieving the burden of the power of what lies within you, because you're not using it. We haven't been using it. We haven't been expressing it. We haven't even been incarnated in it. We don't even know who we are. We're just like placeholders flailing around here trying to do right by this situation. And the deal is that the burden of the gifts that you've been given, supernova souls, and the burden of the gift of the natural world, of the abundance of the source that wants to come back to us, the natural pattern in, say, you could look at indigenous cultures, right, is to be connected to source, receive the bounty, and be in gratitude, right? You're in gratitude, your celebration. Life is about a celebration of the gifts that are offered by the earth. And we've gotten so far away from this. And so it's like we feel this guilt inside for the gifts we've been given. And supernova souls, as soon as you start offering it to the world, that goes away. So we are uncovering deep and profound mysteries about all we've been going through to keep ourselves from our own precious light and gifts and internal abundance. Now, what happens in this world when supernova souls step up and live the truth of the abundance of who they are? It breaks a paradigm, So this is like the quintessential issue here coming up. And for supernova souls and all of humanity. And it's kind of like it's unsustainable to continue receiving and taking and taking and taking in this consumerism lifestyle and not give back spiritually, energetically, love, gratitude, peace. It can't go on. And it's getting really uncomfortable for those of us in the collective consciousness that can feel this internal disconnect growing. And, but then we have the boomerang where supernova souls in some, groups of souls waking up on all different levels, um, taking back those moments, those peaceful moments, coming deeper into connection, living a life of purpose and meaning every moment of every day in this gratitude and love for existence. And the power of that can bring every human soul back home. So, this sun in Taurus is about our identity. And if for supernova souls, it's our identity as advanced souls, and especially with Uranus and Taurus. And so, then with Mercury, Mercury is our everyday conceptual reality. So we're having a very powerful, resonant, magnetic energy from Mercury and the sun coming together. An unmistakable, undeniable flash of light that's like a mirror showing us who we are, really, as souls, you know? Um, and that's what we need to crawl our way back to connection, to crawl our way back to permission, to be at peace so that we can make our offering. That's our God-given right. And to receive the blessings of this world in harmonious celebration and gratitude. So, very powerful activation. It feels like over the last 6 months, because the last eclipses were 6 months ago. That was right before the Mars retrograde. And so we're still kind of figuring out what this is all about. And it's interesting that we've got Mars in Cancer. And so we're speaking to the nurturing, the active nurturing, the power of nurturing, which is really the same thing as life force or the vital force in the body that heals our body, holds all in equilibrium. And so then we've got Chiron in Aries. So we've got Mars. So right now, Mars has been in square. This has been intense energy around bringing up the same Chiron issues. So Mars and Cancer in trying to Chiron in Aries, or square to Chiron in Aries. And it's just this frustration, this gridlock. Mars is ready to fight for that nurturing. This is what really matters. Coming up against Chiron, it's like you can have all the nurturing you want, but if you don't connect the love to the life force, it's kind of like our third chakra of our personal power, being able to connect it back up. We shut it down because we didn't want to misuse our power. We got so manipulated. Now we have to hook it back up. But we only will do that if we can be in alignment with that higher ideal timeline, And so we're learning to hook back up our power. And that's kind of what we're looking at here with Mars square Chiron. It's like, all right, so the power of nurturing comes when you can move the energy of life force. And that's what heals. And that's what loves. That's what grows our food, you know? And so it's been a tense square over the last couple of days. That was exact on the 28th, 29th of April. But we'll feel it all the way up to this eclipse. So Mars square Chiron, pressure, a challenge to the masculine. The masculine say, hey, I want to fight for what's good and what really matters again. Get into alignment. And then Chiron's just like, it's almost the same thing. It's like, it kind of feels like we talk about the feminine energy and our intuitive gifts and our permission for our intuitive gifts and self-worth. And it's like the masculine's self-worth for life force and to access and move these creative forces and energies. So that's kind of interesting because it's like a bloom of this Aries energy that's coming to an end. I mean, Chiron is still in Aries, but Jupiter is going to move over to, Jupiter is at 27 degrees this week. It's 26 right now. So coming to the very end degrees of Aries. So we've got a huge boom of Aries because Jupiter moved into Aries last spring. We had a huge surge of potential energy and a movement of that life force. And then when Jupiter went retrograde, it was like, oh, and now Jupiter is going to make it into Taurus, not retrograde back into Aries. And it moved very quickly through Aries. And so it's kind of like a high speed train lesson, and now we're jumbling down the track. And so a very powerful energy over this next week of Jupiter coming to the end degrees of Aries. And that Mars square Chiron in Aries kind of bringing that energy forward. So the sun is going to, so the other thing that's happening, we're just starting to feel. So the Mars square Chiron is coming off. We also had Mercury. Okay, so when Mercury has been in square with Black Moon Lilith. That was on the 30th, and we are feeling it until right up until the eclipse as well. So, but it's coming off. And so Mercury is second out of 3 squares with Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, deepest, darkest hidden secrets that are keeping us from shining and expressing, offering what we have. It's all about that. Everything is better when we can offer what we have. And so we're examining these deepest, darkest places. And now the sun and Mercury together tomorrow on the 2nd, and then crossing paths. Mercury's retrograde, the sun direct. Mercury then, so the sun is going to come into that square with Black Moon Lilith on the 4th, the day before this eclipse. And so that's a very powerful energy because we're talking about our sun as our identity, and in this case we're talking about our permission for our true identity, our true wealth. And so that is on the table everywhere, and it's showing us our true wealth is that intuitive wealth that's been hidden and unable to shine. So that's a really powerful energy because it's going very reflecting powerfully with because that means the full moon will be in square, will be coming into square. So there will be a T square, the sun in Taurus, the moon in Scorpio, and then in square to Black Moon Lilith in Leo. So a fixed T square for this full moon. And the moon and the sun opposite in square to this is like, all right, so the south node in Scorpio is getting so massively triggered and we haven't felt it. And yet it's coming to a close. So the Scorpio full moon eclipse is incredibly important messages coming in. And it's everything about the darkness we've allowed to cover our light, keeping ourselves, just like humanity, in shame and unworthiness for what we've been given. So a lot must be reconciled in this. And that's the time that we're in right now. So so we're coming up on this full moon eclipse, and the other main thing that's happening is that Venus is in Gemini, coming into square with Neptune. So this happens on the 4th as well. So the day before this eclipse, it's good we're doing an activation, full moon activation, as well as the lunar eclipse session because of these energies. So on the 4th, which is Thursday, May 4th, we've got Venus in Gemini in square to Neptune in Pisces. And so all of our personal planets, Sun and Mercury just cross paths, still in square to Black Moon Lilith, the moon in square to Black Moon Lilith, Mercury, Venus in square to Neptune, and Mars in square to Chiron. Now, these are all coming off just as we get to the eclipse. So I would expect a buildup of very intense internal pressure, but can we use this to our advantage? Because we're starting to get some serious clarity down there under the muck under the shadows, where we haven't been able to look, where we haven't been able to see. We're starting to understand these concepts, this energy that's kept us in poverty from and disconnected from our own gifts. So everything is about this, and all of our personal planets in squares. So it's kind of like, um, and that Venus square Neptune is the last one that happens on the 4th exact. So this says the eclipse is about this. And Venus in Gemini is our voice, right? So the voice of the feminine, the voice of the intuitive that's been silenced. And then in square to Neptune in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces representing the patterns of the Piscean age and the patterns of the past. So Venus is coming up against, her voice has been silenced by the patterns of the past. What does that have to do with? It has to do with external authority. So that's really powerful because it's highlighting the Pluto energy. And Pluto is now at 0 degrees Aquarius, but moving back into Capricorn. Pluto turns retrograde tomorrow, May 2nd. So we have a huge shift of energy because now we have Venus, or Mercury retrograde, and now our bigger planets are beginning to turn. We're going to have in June, Saturn turns retrograde, and in July, on the 1st of July, Neptune will turn retrograde. So the big, slower moving planets, it's kind of like, woo, backdrop shift. Hold on a minute. We got some stuff to work out here in the bigger picture. So Pluto turning retrograde is a game changer because Pluto is already in square to the nodes. They're 3 degrees apart right now. Well, actually, as of the 11th of May. So they're still 4 degrees apart. So on the 10th, actually, I think we start feeling that. But with Pluto turning retrograde, that's what's bringing them closer together. And I mean, it has an energy. It's like Pluto retrograde because they don't meet until they're back until they switch signs. 29 degrees and 28 degrees is when these squares with the nodes, Pluto and the nodes, again, a T square, at the end degrees of cardinal signs. And that happens, they're exact in July and August is when we're going to feel that the most, but we're heading into it and the energy is so triggered. So Pluto square the nodes. Now, the other interesting, so we're feeling this, and this is this big twist of fate, this big destiny is calling. There's no way to get away from it, you know? Oh gosh. And so supernova souls are really feeling that because we're feeling on a visceral level internally and cellularly that, oh my gosh, she might be right about the fact that we're on the cutting edge. We're here to build new systems. We're here to lead the way, you know? Because the cream is rising to the top. And all you have to do is go stand in a group of people and feel this disconnect and feel this burden and feel this and know that, like, oh my gosh, but perhaps that means it's your time to shine, right? Like, you're the boomerang. You're the light that gets to come flooding in after all of the energies that have gone up against that light, you know? So part of this whole thing is trying to get us to step back a little bit and see a bigger picture that this whole evolution is a lie. It's designed to try to keep us in order to bring us back to source. And why don't we just get on with it? You know? And what do you need to do in the radical self-care to take care of yourself? Put yourself in a position that you have something to offer. You have so much to offer. It's not that you don't have anything to offer. And then supernova soul is like, no, I don't really have anything to offer. And they probably won't like it or want it anyway. It's like, because what you're offering, you actually had soul level before you even came to earth. That's the definition of supernova soul. It's kind of like, okay, build up all of the degrees and the certificates and all the things that show that you are worth something in this world. No, the wealth you're working with, the skills you're working with, you've had for lifetime. You've worked over many lifetimes. It's those thousands of more lifetimes. And isn't that time for that shit to work for you? Because just like humanity is becoming overburdened with the disconnect and the shame over not living in connection and gratitude, there's a huge shame growing. It's always been there. in SuperNova Souls. It's shame over your gifts, programmed shame. But now those gifts are becoming such a burden because the shame is shifting. Recognizing it's like, oh, we carry the shame, but the shame is now coming forward and emerging in that, oh my gosh, we've been given precious, precious gifts, precious resources, and we've just disregarded and ignored and destroyed and toxified everything we've been given. And SuperNova Souls is like, can you go on without unmasking the truth of who you are? Can you go on and live with the shame, the internal shame around holding back your precious spiritual gifts? You thought you were serving, right? Because nobody wanted it. So you just better just forget about it and just get along and go along. It's not going to work. So it's an interesting energy that's unfolding as we find permission for these gifts, the gift of who we are, really who we are. Now, this is interesting because Pluto square the nodes is so intense, and so unavoidable, and just like coming up against the wall of what's no longer serving and dismantling it. But Pluto is also coming into a sextile with Neptune, because Neptune is moving along. Neptune has moved into new territory. We've had all of our, a lot of our bigger planets that are slow movers go beyond where they went last year, right? So we're in this new territory energy. And part of this new territory, well, Pluto retrograde is going to meet back up in a sextile with Neptune. We've had this the last couple of years on and off. And so this is really exciting because it's a really good balance with the intense square. So Pluto sextile Neptune, they are 3 degrees apart in a sextile as of the 11th of May, which is interesting because the nodes are 3 degrees apart as of the 10th of May. So that's when we're really starting to roll into the next chapter, which is interesting. The 10th, 11th, and then we've got Mercury coming out of retrograde on the 15th. And so there's a big energy of like Mercury's coming out of retrograde, and now we flip over into the new territory. Now the House of Cards can't handle the weight. Like we can't handle the weight of the burden of our gifts. And so we are moving into this new chapter energy around that time. Now, the sun, after this, so the sun and Mercury are together crossing paths right now. And then the sun is going to come into an opposition with the moon for the full moon eclipse and square with Black Moon Lilith. Then the sun, after this eclipse, will be moving into a conjunction with Uranus. And this is a very high frequency activation of our true identity. And so no wonder we're going through this, right? And so that Sun Uranus conjunction is precursor energy too. It's kind of like a ding, 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 like starting an energy. Speaking to Mercury when it comes back out of retrograde, comes out of retrograde, turns direct on the 15th, will move out of retrograde shadow on the 6th of June, the 1st of June. And then on the 5th of June, we'll come into this finally catch up to Uranus. And it's like all this excitement, anticipation, because they came 2 degrees apart. And then, so now the sun in Uranus happens on the 9th. But we start feeling that right at the time of this eclipse. So it's like the eclipse energy moves us in, and then boom, activation of who we really are, the light turning on, no denying it. It's like part of, I can feel this shame. We talk about all the burdens that we carry, but it's like, don't beat yourself up about it either, because you're disconnected from who you really are. Nobody's been able to receive. No, don't have any true support, but we know this all has to change because we got to get into this place of living our truth. So that Sun Uranus activation will be powerful, and it comes just right on the heels of the solar eclipse. Then we will be having a new moon in Taurus, and that will be a completion of the eclipse cycle. So we're still going to be in this energy for the next 2 weeks, and that will be Mercury resolving, but also now Mercury, when Mercury retrogrades back to 5 degrees. That's where it went into retrograde shadow. And at that time, it was in conjunction with the nodes, with the north node of the moon. Now, Mercury is going to retrograde back to 5 degrees, but the nodes have moved to 4 degrees. They're going to move to 3 degrees on the 10th. So that really confirms a big shift right then. It feels like when the Mercury retrograde Sun Uranus, Mercury turns direct, and all of that kind of moving there. So, but the north node's at 4 degrees right now, and moving to 3. So, but Mercury will still be within 2 degrees of the north node before it turns. And that's where it started the story. And it went almost to Uranus, back to the north node, and now back into Uranus. See, so it's like a new direction based on our new self-worth, release of this hidden shame that has to do with what's been hidden in our subconscious in this with the South Node Scorpio energy, and starting to drop these burdens that we've been carrying and move into the life that we know is possible. We have no other choice. We are here to demonstrate it. Once you break free, once you clear these authority contracts of the harassment and that kind of energy, then we have no choice but to move into the expression of our abundance. And maybe that's why, again, like we stay in these toxic situations, because it's easier than expressing what's inside of us. But this is changing. But that's a lot of that tension of this eclipse with Venus square Neptune. The this dark stories of the past that have kept us from speaking and expressing our truth. So very intense times we're living in, and yet you can feel that we're on that corner. We're like turning a corner. And so take care of yourself the best you can. Claim that peace, claim that moment, claim who you are. And it's so weird because it's like the supernova souls are the servers. They want to serve, they want to give, they know that's the highest calling. And yet, in order to get over this hump where we've been stuck, we have to take all our energy back. We have to take it all back in order to give ourselves that peace of mind, that life, that our own energy to work with, so we can move forward in that life of service that's coming, that's so beautiful. And not overwhelming, not codependent, not taking on the burdens of other people, but just offering. So really powerful times that we're in. And so Jupiter's coming to 26, 27 degrees, which means, well, Neptune's at 26 degrees right now, 26, 27. So Jupiter in Aries, one sign over from Neptune. And that is happening through the 3rd. So that's semi-sextile, 26 degrees, powerful energy, because we've got the beginnings of the zodiac and we got the end of the zodiac, in the semi-sextile. So that's a very sweet energy of coming together. Semi-sextiles, 30 degrees is about crossing over the divide and working together. So in that case, we've got the end and the beginning working together. And so I would expect our lives have a lot of manifestation and process around endings and beginnings and rebirth, but we can't do it if we're going to keep ourselves chained and burdened in these stories that, really it comes down to, how can we serve and offer if we're trying to be the savior? Because that's where we get sucked dry. So, well, we're really in a conundrum, but powerful energies here in this culmination time. So I hope you'll consider joining the Eclipse Soul Group session. So the lunar eclipse, Scorpio lunar eclipse soul group session, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Friday, May 5th. And that's just an hour and a half or so before the exact eclipse so we can be right in that energy together. That's $20. That's a group intuitive session where we go deeper into shared past life energies and get those messages, the healing, the clearing that supernova souls need right now. We're taking advantage of these times. This is what we're doing. We're taking the energies of influence and making them work for us by paying attention. And there's also a full moon activation. That's going to be Friday or Thursday, May 4th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And so hopefully you can make one of those events or both. They're really beautiful. How the activation, is a guided meditation. So it's a little bit more of a meditative experience, just kind of a journey. And then for deeper work, we're going to move into that soul group session. So the activation is $10. I hope you'll consider joining one or both of those. And it's wonderful to have your support. If you're a part of the Soul Tribe or the Supernova Gold, check those out. For $10 a month, you get Friday video update and monthly Q&As and resources for Supernova Souls. And in the Gold membership for $20 a month, that gets you into the new and full moon activations and live sharing circles after those activations. Very powerful for supernova souls to be heard and seen and connect and see each other. And that mirroring effect is so powerful. And so I wanted to offer that as well for this lunar eclipse soul group session. I will be having a sharing circle after, so that's included in the $20. You can come and be a part of the session and then come to the sharing circle to help process and share and understand a little bit more, because we get these incredible insights, and then we've got to feel into what that together we bring what we have. That's the cool thing about these sessions, is that it's not just me leading a session. It's about listening to the messages that want to come through. And it's so cool because this is the intuitive work, right? So you don't know ahead of time, and it's always different. And it depends on the group and what you guys bring. And that's your offering. It's a way to move into the energy of your offering, to recognize and share your intuitive. Yes, we got to figure this out together, Supernova Souls. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this movement. And powerful internal excavation time happening right now. Be with it, cleaning out the old, and releasing those burdens that are, it's like it's turning that heavy energy, turning into growing wings and flying away, lifting up. So be really good to yourself through this next couple of weeks as we move through these energies, radical self-care, and know that we're having huge activation energies with that Sun Uranus, and that'll start right moving in to this eclipse, and then we'll feel that through the next week after. So hang in there, Supernova Souls. Thanks for everything you've done to be here with us on the planet right now. And I can't wait to see what happens as we move forward in these new energies together. So thank you so much, Supernova Souls. I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.